talking with Raquel Gil from Rescate in Costa Rica. Rescate is a wildlife rescue and rehabilitation center. For those of you that have been on the Phoenix Landing expeditions to Costa Rica, you know that we have stopped at Rescate and we've seen firsthand the great work that they do down there. So we're very fortunate to have with us Raquel Gil today. Just a little bit of a bio on her. She's a Spanish wildlife biologist. She has a master's in biodiversity management and conservation. And she's the wildlife internship and conservation projects coordinator at Rescate. And she has created the animal welfare and enrichment programs. And she leads conservation projects focused on citizen breeding, rehabilitation, and release. She has a lot of experience in endangered species breeding, post-release monitoring, and also international collaborations, where she combines scientific research with hands-on fieldwork. Also joining us via video, but not live, is, I don't have Roseanne's last name. Roseanne.
It's a bit difficult to pronounce because she's from the Netherlands, but it's Beckable.
Okay, we'll go with that. And she's a behavioral ecologist, and she has experience studying a wide range of species across diverse environments. And she oversees and conducts research on the final stage of rehabilitation and post-release monitoring of the citizens at Bosque Escondido, which is one of the release sites in Costa Rica. Her background is rooted in fundamental research, but she found her calling at Rescate, and she's able to combine her science and her commitment to animal welfare. So we're very pleased to have both of them join us. And Raquel, I will hand it over to you. Oh, just a reminder, there is a Q&A. We'll have Q&A at the end. Please try to make your questions, if you have them, broad questions, not specific for your bird, but kind of a question that everybody can benefit from the answer. And we will kind of have a discussion with those, time allowing, at the end.
Thank you so much, Frank, for this introduction, and thank you, Phoenix Landing, for having us. We are going to talk today about reintroduction and release of endangered parrots in Costa Rica. So Frank already introduced us. We are Raquel Gil, myself, and Rosa Beckeboom. I'm going to now let Rosanne introduce herself a bit on a video. Sadly, she couldn't join us today live, but she's going to be presenting some slides through videos.
Hello, Phoenix Landing. Thank you so much for inviting me to give a presentation to you. I'm sorry I cannot attend in person, but yeah, well, with all this technology, at least I can still tell you everything about what we're doing for the citizens in Bosque Escondido. I'm Rosanne Beukeboom. I'm the researcher, one of the researchers in the forest. And yeah, let me tell you about the process of release for our parrots.
Amazing. Thank you, Rosanne. Well, first of all, this is going to be a bit outline of today. I'm going to be talking about Rescate Wildlife Rescue Center, what we are, what we do. So you have a brief context. Why breed and release parrots? Then we are going to talk a bit about the specialized process of rehabilitating and release yellow-naped Amazon parrots, because we have a special process for them. Then I'm going to be talking about breeding macaws in captivity. And finally, Rosanne is going to explain you about releasing and monitoring these parrots that we rehabilitate and breed. So first, Rescate Wildlife Rescue Center. We are a nonprofit organization based in Costa Rica. We are currently the biggest rescue center in Central America. And every year we receive around 3,000 injured or orphaned wild animals. We have our rehabilitation center. We have a big hospital. It's the biggest hospital right now in Central America. We have a sanctuary where we host around 800 of animals that cannot be released. We have environmental education project, breeding programs of endangered animals, and we do have 3 private release sites where we release all the species that we rehabilitate or breed. Just to show you a bit, this is our hospital from a sky picture. It is really big. It is really cool for us full of forest and nature. We have a specialized clinic for each species. And we receive lots of species like howler monkeys, cetaceans, sloths, and many, many more species. As I said, we receive over 3,000 animals every year. Last year was a bit more. This is because we collaborate a lot with them government. Most of the animals that we receive are because the government confiscates them from the wildlife trafficking or from illegal pet trade, or because they were injured or they are orphaned, and they bring us also a particular people that finds animals that are injured. They can also bring us, but we never go to take the animals. It's always the government. Most of the animals that we receive come because they were confiscated by the government or they were extractions. That means that people goes to the jungle or the forest and they find, for example, a baby bird, and they maybe think that they are alone. For example, that happens a lot with owls, that sometimes when they are trying to learn how to fly, they are going to be on the ground and people don't know that the parents are there and they take them. So that's what we call extractions. Injured a lot as well, 16% of the incomes, and well, orphan babies, etc. This is just to show you a bit. For wildlife group, we receive lots of birds. Last year we received almost 2,000 of birds, and the majority of them are always citizens. And we're just so you see a bit on numbers, the work that we do. Almost half of the animals that arrive to our rehabilitation center end up in the wild. We end up releasing them. Some of them sadly die, and some of them we had to euthanize because, well, sometimes the injuries that they come with are super severe that we cannot do anything for them. So the best way to help them is to euthanize them, sadly. And just 8% of the animals that arrive to Rescate Wildlife Rescue Center end in our lifetime care sanctuary because they are not releasable or they are exotic, so they don't belong to Costa Rica, so we cannot release them. 3% of the animals end up in our CRAVE, means our breeding center. So why breed and release parrots? So cetaceans are endangered worldwide. You probably already know that. Almost 28% of the species of parrots that exist in the world are endangered because of hunting, trapping, and trading as pets, habitat degradation due to agricultural practices, and habitat loss. Habitat shifting also due to the global warming and climate change. And also we have a lot of non-native alien predators such as feral cats or rats. Most of them, well, we have 4% of the parrots that are already extinct and a big percentage that are threatened. In Costa Rica, we have 17 parrot species recorded. Costa Rica is very rich in diversity of macaws, Amazon parrots, parakeets, condors, and the species that are more threatened are great-breed macaws and ambiguous scarlet macaws and yellow-nape Amazon parrots. I'm going to speak a bit about scarlet macaw. Scarlet macaws are ranged in the New World and Neotropics from Mexico to Bolivia. The conservation status is globally last conserved, but in Costa Rica, they are locally fragmented and vulnerable. You can see here that in this map that are in the 1945. In Costa Rica, we had scarlet macaws around all Costa Rica. And in the 2000, we just had 3 small populations. From the 2000 ongoing, lots of reintroduction projects started. And so now the population is a bit stable, but in some parts of Costa Rica where we used to have macaws, we still don't have macaws. So there's a currently local extinction in Nicoya Peninsula that currently we are releasing macaws there. So we are recovering the population over there due to conservation and reintroductions. These guys, it's a species live in the wild from 40 to 50 years. In captivity, they live way, way longer. I found out that maybe you know more than me, but that it's registered that there's scarlet macaw that lived in captivity 24 years, which I think it's pretty amazing. They weigh from 800 to 1,200 grams. The period of incubation goes from 26 to 28 days. And fun facts, something important to know is that in some countries, they nest in the clays to make a process that it's called geography. But in Costa Rica, we don't have this. They just make their nest in empty trees. Then are ambiguous, the great green macaws, they are critically endangered globally and in Costa Rica. Major threats are deforestation, pineapple industry, color ranching, and illegal trade. They live a bit less than scarlet macaws in captivity. And the range goes from Honduras to Ecuador. In Costa Rica, mainly we find them in the Caribbean lowlands. And it's a species that is highly, highly dependent on the almond tree. And well, the population declined a lot as well in the 19th. And right now, the efforts of conservation for this species is really, really important in the country. We still don't have stable populations. They are bigger than scarlet macaws, and the incubation period is a bit longer as well. John is probably already, please. And then we have all our fantastic yellow-naped Amazon parrot. Yellow-naped Amazon parrot are critically endangered. The main problem with them is the pet trade. They are the second most active parrot in the world. So there has been a lot of like taking them from the wild to traffic them to other parts of the world. So right now in Costa Rica, we just can find them in the north of Costa Rica, North Pacific. But the population is under the 2,000 individuals in the wild. Well, they are smaller than macaws, up to 500 grams. Sometimes when they come, they weigh more because they love to eat. And when they come, it's really funny. They come really fat, and we have to exercise them so they are more fit, so we can release them, so they are able to fly and release them. And yeah, they are super famous because they have the ability to mimic human speech. I'm sure probably some of you have them, and they are incredible. It's very funny to hear them talk and sing. So why rescue and release cetaceans? Well, first of all, to reinforce wild populations. Second, preserving genetic diversity. It's very important when we have populations that are decreasing more and more and more to introduce new genetic pool to the populations to avoid the endocasm. Then as well giving confiscated parrots a second chance. Most of the times, rescue centers like ours in Costa Rica, we end up with lots of parrots in our facilities. And that means that sometimes we cannot afford to have them all in captivity, because it's a lot of money with food, it's a lot of staff, it's a lot of care, it's extremely difficult. So really trying to rehabilitate them, even though they were pets, and release them, it's good for the population, and to give them a second chance, that probably they are going to have a better welfare if we release them than if they end up in a cage with a lot of individuals, and not as having the chance to take care of them properly. Also, it helps a lot to engage local communities, to build pride, awareness of the wildlife, in leadership, the conservation programs. That happens a lot on the places where we release these species. And to apply advancing science, and monitor and release improve conservation overall. So at Rescate, we have an endangered species breeding program. We also breed other species, not just parrots or cetaceans. We currently breed great macaws, scarlet macaws, great creosotes, king vultures, and wily peccaries. In the past, we were breeding as well spider monkeys and square monkeys, not anymore because their populations are more stable right now. And in the future, we want to breed yellow-naped Amazon parrots because they are critically endangered. But well, this is a project that we are trying to develop these days. So we have 3 facilities. One is in the center in Alajuela, in the center of Costa Rica, in Alajuela, where we have the rehabilitation center or hospital, sanctuary, and breeding center. And also that facility works as a release site for species that are native to the Central Valley. Then we have 2 release sites, 2 private reserves that are close to the public. One is in the North Pacific of Costa Rica. It's a reserve that we call Bosque Escondido, and another one in the South Pacific of Costa Rica. That this reserve is very special because it's really close to Corcovado, one of the hot spot of biodiversity from Costa Rica. So in San Jose Tito release site, we started to release scarlet macaws in the 95. It's a very remote place, only accessible by boat. It's a tropical rainforest. We have 13 acres of reserve. And yes, it's has borders with Piedras Blancas National Park. And in front of our release sites, we have a Corcovado National Park.
Bosque Escondido is a dry tropical forest that is located on the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, and it's about 1,600 acres, which is pretty big. Before 1973, it was intensively used as farmland, and that also meant that a lot of species that were living before it was farmland were extinct there, locally extinct. Between 1973 and 1989, a part of the forest already started regrowing because the person who owned it only did a little bit of rice farming. And in 1990, it was bought by Rescate, and since then, no more farming activities have been going on. And Rescate used this forest to reintroduce yellow-naped parrots since 2000. And 2015, they also started with reintroducing scarlet macaws.
Thank you, Rosanne. So let's talk about our endangered species breeding program and reintroduction. As I already said, we breed scarlet macaws and great green macaws. Historically, they were found throughout all Costa Rica. And well, I already explained that the population decreased to small population in Osa Peninsula. So we started to to reintroduce scarlet macaws in this first reserve that I explained to you, that is next to Osa Peninsula. So the birds that we were releasing would have a good connection with the wild population that there was still in Costa Rica. The breeding program started in the 95, and we started to release them in the 98 until the 2014. And Rescate released over 300 captive bred fledglings. Then the population over there stabilized, and so we switched over releases in 2015 to Bosque Escondido. In 2023, we saw our first breeding or the first natural bred there. So we were super, super happy, because that means that the reintroduction program was is successful. Then for the great green macaws, we don't have a release site, so we have a collaboration with Ara Manzanillo, which is a project that is in the Caribbean side, and we send there the macaws that we breed. For the yellow-nape Amazon parrots, the process of release is a bit different. We currently don't breed them, but definitely we are constructing our breeding center for yellow-nape Amazon parrots, and we want to breed them. The process is a bit different because these species, they vocalize, they produce a lot of human vocalizations, they sing, they speak different languages, and we are releasing them. In some projects, when they have parrots that they talk or make human vocalizations, they say, okay, these parrots, we cannot release this parrot, but we don't do that. When they arrive, we put them in a big cage. After they pass the quarantine process, we put them in a cage with other Amazon yellow-nape parrots, and they start to socialize, and somehow they stop to look to us or to speak to us, because where they are, they barely see people. So they start to socialize, and we have observed that they start to learn vocalizations from other individuals. We are currently developing a study to see how these parrots learn new vocalizations, and if through this process they learn nature vocalizations, because yellow-nape Amazon parrots have dialects in the wild, and in Costa Rica we have 3 different dialects of 3 different populations. So right now I'm developing a study to see if the parrots that the were experts that we are releasing are able to learn nature vocalizations and socialize with the wild parrots, or they are creating a new dialect, or what's going on. But what we see empirically is that they do socialize, they do learn how to communicate with other parrots that were expats and wild parrots, and eventually they are accepted by wild populations, and they are living happily at the release site. So this is very interesting. We also started while ago a new system that we call a silo or shelter in English, which is a open cage. We have, like you can see here a draw. It's an open cage where yellow-nape Amazon parrots that are not really good flying, or it's taking for them too long to to be able to fly, so we cannot release them really fast. We put them there. They are protected by a fence from predators. And they live there. We have nests for them, and they can socialize with birds that can actually fly and that come and go from the shelter, from the asilo. And so far, it has been working because this year we had a trio of yeah, two females and one male that made a trio that bred there, and they had 7 chicks this year that now are flying free. Last year they had the same trio, 3 chicks, and there's another pair, a new pair that is currently breeding there. So it's a new methodology that they developed for those parrots that they have difficulties learning how to fly, because sometimes when they come, they are really fat and it takes them a long time to be able to fly long distances. And now I'm going to talk about the specialist birds. Sorry, I read. This is a mistake. Now I'm going to talk about breeding macaws in captivity. So overall, here I'm going to show you the breeding program process. When a macaw arrives, it arrives to Rescate because it is injured or it was confiscated. It has to get a general health check, and then it has to go through 6 weeks of quarantine time. All the animals have to go through this quarantine time. And then we are going to ask ourselves, is this parrot candidate for release? Yes or no. If it's candidate to release, then we are going to group them, and we are going to put them in a pre-release cage, which is usually our aviaries are super big, where they can socialize and they can fly. And then we transport them to the release site, and over there they are going to stay for a minimum of 3 months before releasing them. If they are not candidates to release, because they don't have a good wild behavior, or they have injuries, or they have something that it makes them not releasable, then they may become part of the breeding program. And once at the breeding center, I'm going to put them in an also big aviary, so they can start to meet each other and hopefully mate and pair with somebody. When they find a mate, they pass to another breeding cage. So they have a bit more privacy and they have a nest to breed. If they have chicks, these chicks are going to I'm going to separate them from the parents after 4 months. Then I'm going to group all the juveniles together so they socialize and they don't have a lot of contact with humans, because those are birds that we want to have a good wild behavior. Then these birds are going to go also to the pre-release, to the release site, where they are going to stay for 3 months in a pre-release cage at the release site. This 3-month period is super important because is the amount of time that is needed for them to be able to socialize with other wild macaws and to habituate and have a better fidelity side to the release sites when we release them. So this way they are going to have more chances to survive. So overall, this is the process. And this is how it looks, our breeding center. Our breeding center is quite big. Right now I have around 200 yes, individuals between yellow-napes that we are starting to prepare the program for yellow-napes, scarlet macaws, and grapefruit macaws. The breeding cages are designed like this. We have a big aviary where where macaws are going to be able to fly during the non-breeding season, and then around the flying cage, if they can fly, they are going to stay there. Around the flying cage, we have breeding cages with a nest where they are going to go, sometimes alone, most of the time, with their mate to breed during the breeding season. So this is how it looks like over breeding cages. You see, they are slightly smaller, and they have the nest. It depends on the species. You can have them closer or not. Scarlet macaws are okay, but for great macaws, they are more separated and they have a visual barrier because they can be more aggressive and more territorial when they are breeding. So when I start, when you want to breed, you have to select first your breeders. Not all the macaws that arrive are going to be part of the breeding center or the breeding program. You need to have into account health criteria. You need to select individuals that are true to their species type. There are macaws that can have some coloration that indicates that maybe they are hybrids. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to see, but if we have any if we question or if we see any color that is a bit weird, we discard that individual. They have to be physically healthy. So that means that they have to be free from deformities, genetic weakness, or a really advanced age. Sometimes some deformities are okay, but sometimes it's going to depend if it's a female or a male. For example, if I have a female that has a deformity on the paws, or a deformity that can maybe make her break the eggs while incubating, I have to discard that female. But for males, it may work. And then we have to avoid birds also with bad behavior. For example, birds that have chronic feather plucking or self-harming. It's really dangerous to have them part of the breeding center because they other individuals can learn from them, and they can teach their babies to pluck their feathers, or they can pluck their feathers to the babies. This is an example. This year I had a pair they are super good breeders every year. They have 4 chicks, and they feed the 4 chicks is amazing. But this year I started to see weird signs on plucking feather signs on the chicks, like this chick that is bald on the head, and then this chick that the feathers are growing irregularly. So I found out that the female started to pluck the feathers to the chicks, to the 4 of them. This is very dangerous because the follicles were destroyed. So they later, well, right now they are bald, and they don't have the capacity to form new feathers on the head. So you need to be careful, and you need to observe really well your animals in order to have them on your breeding program or not. Then you want to find when you new breeders to introduce to pair them and introduce new breeders. You need to always select a neutral territory. But if you don't have females tend to accept more new males. Sometimes macaws can be very aggressive to new macaws, so it's better to do it in a neutral territory. It's always good to do it in a cage without a nest box, and with perches that are 30-50 centimeters apart, and that they have a good environment and a healthy environment. Then some part of the work that is really important that we do is to observe, observe to see compatibility. Sometimes we need to hide because when those most of the animals, the pacos that we have at the breeding center were expects when they see us, they don't express their natural behaviors. But when we are observing, we are looking for non-aggressive following. We are looking for animals that are sharing a perch, alloping each other, that they are mutual feeding. And once we see that pair is making those behaviors, we are going to see if it's a female and a male, right? Sometimes macaws are going to pair with individuals from the same sex, and sometimes that's useful. At the breeding center, I have pairs that are two females, and I use them as fostering parents because they lay eggs and they are really good raising chicks. So sometimes you want, or it's good to have this kind of pairs, but obviously the male, just if they are really good raising chicks. I have a funny video here. So this is the behavior that we are looking when we are looking for a pair.
Sugar, let's get it on.
This is a pair baby.
We're all sensitive people with so much to give.
So the subtle courtship is a bit, it looks a bit like that. You have eye dilatation, vocalization, posture. Then the copulation typically is like that, side to side, on a perch or on the cage floor, but usually it's more on a perch. Most pairs, they are going to mate multiple times before laying the eggs. And there's no clear scientific evidence of sperm storage. So you cannot split the pair. It's very important that there is a regular mating. Then the nest is really important. You need to provide a good nest, a good environment to your macaws to breed. Macaws prefer bare nest captivities. We need to avoid having leaves, toys, or complex materials that also can be dangerous for them. Natural nests are mostly empty or it has chewed wood. And you can stimulate the breeding by having a really small entrance because they love to chew and chew the entrance and make the entrance bigger or as they like to make the entrance. It's good to fill the box with bark or sawdust because it makes it more clear for the bird. Some pairs need enrichment, but some other pairs not. This is really important. This is why it's really important to observe your pairs and know how they are and their personality and the issues they struggle with. Some pairs, they need enrichment all year round. Some pairs, it's better to stop the enrichment because you are going to stress them more if you provide the enrichment while they are breeding. And also they can be super aggressive to you. So you have to know your pairs really well and respond to them according to their needs. The nest materials, it's really important to have a good substrate. We use sawdust. This substrate has to be dry, clean always. I clean the nest almost weekly and more during a rainy season because it gets wet and then you can have ectoparasites. I use to clean the nest quaternary ammonium, which is pet-friendly, is toxic for them. And sometimes I would put a bit of ivermectin around just to prevent ectoparasites. So you will have to check the nest regularly, every week or more frequently. We have to go up and see. Sometimes you can get attacked by a macaw. How we check the nest is always we have to look that both macaws are outside of the nest. Then we have, I don't know if you see, I hope you see a wire door that we can slide and close the access for them, because when they are breeding, they are very aggressive. They are not friendly. And if you check the nest with them inside, it can be really dangerous and also really, really stressful for them. So we are going to close, and then we can, from the other side, look inside and see if there are eggs, if there are chicks, or yeah, it's really funny to see and find eggs. It's always exciting. It's more exciting to see the chicks. About the clutch size and the egg laying, usually they lay 2 to 3 eggs, one every 4 days. It's really, really important to monitor this and know when they are laying the first egg or the second egg, etc. Because this is going to with this information, you are going to know when they are going to hatch and how old are your chicks. And this way, you are going to monitor better, and you're going to help and manage better, and you're going to have a better successful breeding season. Macaws, scarlet macaws, they have up to 5 or 6 eggs. It's pretty amazing. I have a pair that always has 4 eggs, sometimes more, but they breed every year 4 chicks. And I always prefer them to have one clutch. Sometimes if you want to have more babies, I'm going to take the eggs and substitute them with dummy eggs. And if I have possible fostering parents, I'm going to allocate those eggs to another pair, and this way I'm going to have more chicks that year. But this is a bit stressful to make, so I just make it with the really good pairs, not a lot. The egg monitoring is super, super important. You can candle and see if the egg is fertile or not fertile. It's very, very important to avoid wasted incubation time, because if the egg is not fertile, you can take it and probably they are going to lay new fertile eggs, and to prevent eggs that are contaminated, and eggs that are non-fertile can contaminate to the fertile ones. Then managing eggs, well, you have to, I already explained a bit about that, but yes, sometimes I'm going to take the eggs if I see that the pair can have another clutch to have more chicks and have a more successful season. And I'm going to substitute those eggs with dummy eggs if I need to. Sometimes if pairs, for example, I have a pair that they are 2 females that they always lay non-fertile eggs, but they are super good breeders. So I use them to foster other eggs. So when they lay non-fertile eggs, I put them dummy eggs until I have fertile eggs for them to have, or sometimes I put directly the chick. It's always good to have fostering parents in case you have new pairs that are new breeders that they are breeding for the first time. And sometimes they are learning how to breed and they don't breed really well. Sometimes they abandon the chick, and the chicks that they abandon, you can foster to these pairs. It's super important to keep track of everything, quantity of eggs, put all dates, if they are fertile, non-fertile, any problems, weight, measures. It's super important to have all the information. For a scarlet macaws, the incubation time goes from 25 to 26 days, where an ambiguous is a bit longer, and you have to control really well that. And so you can know when your eggs are going to hatch. Sometimes they will need a bit of assisting to hatch. if the shell is too dry, if the chick is in the wrong position or is very excited. If the pip doesn't progress after 24, 36 hours, I'm going to assist to the hatch. It is a very delicate thing to do. So you need to apply starting moisture and be super, super careful, because if you break the blood vessels, the chick can die. Then we don't a lot of hand raiding. This is something that we are going to do if the parents are not feeding the chicks. That happens a lot with the third and the fourth chicks. And sometimes what I'm going to do is, if they are taking care really well from the first and the second one, maybe I take the first and the second one, I take them to the clinic, I hand raise them for a few days, so the third and the fourth are going to be stronger because the parents are going to feed them more. And once they have more or less the same size, I bring back the first and the second chick. And from there, I have to monitor, but usually they take care of them. They prioritize more or less them, all of them, because if not, the thirds and the fourth chicks usually die. So always the first chick is going to be bigger and stronger, and the fourth is going to be always smaller. This is really normal because they always prioritize to feed and to take care from the first one and the second one. So this picture is really cool because you can see they have 1 or 2 days between them, but you can really see the different sizes of the clutch. Also, it's really, really important to keep the recording of all the development. You have to track absolutely everything and make regularly checks about the weight, body condition, if they have ectoparasites, not all the problems. This is how it looks like. This is a macaw with a crop super full. This is a baby macaw it has maybe 2 days, I think, 2 days. When they born, they are super fragile, are really, really small. This is a botfly. When it's a rainy season, it's very common to start to have ectoparasites. So you have to regularly check how they are to avoid that, to put things to prevent and take these botflies because they are super painful. And eventually they can die because of that. When they are 3 months old, they hatch. 90 days more or less, they fledge, from the nest, and then they are going to stay there 2 to 4 weeks with the parents, and then I'm going to put all the juveniles together in a pre-release cage so they start to socialize and to learn how to fly, learn how to forage, and then all the natural behaviors so they are ready to release. Now I'm going to let Rosanne talk about releasing and monitoring the parrots in the wild.
So after they went through the veterinary checks at the main sanctuary, they are established that they are healthy and healthy enough to be released. They arrive at Bosque, and they are individually marked, so we know who is who, and that helps us with the process of rehabilitation. And then we move them to the pre-release cages. So here you see one of our pre-release cages that we have. Usually they spend on average 3 months in such a cage. First of all, so they can kind of learn where home is, which will help with the site fidelity when we release them. They can, in those 3 months, get used to the climate, even though we're only 5-6 hours away from Alajuela. We are much drier, yes, and hotter, so they're gonna kind of adjust to the climate while we can keep an eye on it. We are starting to give them natural fruits that are in the forest, so they're getting used to the food, and we can teach them other survival skills while they're there. One of the things we provide them in the cage is with enrichment, and these can be several fruits that we find in the forest, so they can get used for what they can actually forage when they are released. But we also put every week new branches in the cages, which will also provide them with changing surfaces to land on. So it really helps to practice their flight, their landing skills, which is also, of course, very important after release. Besides the enrichment, we are also practicing flying with these birds. You can imagine that many of them, and some of them up to 40 years in a cage, they really need to learn how to fly again. So we're just practicing that with them. We're recording their flight quality, their flocking skills, so how well do they fly with others, and how their landscape navigation is, so they can, are they bumping into objects that are hanging in the cage? Are they well in landing? And that's where those branches come in handy, that they kind of have to see every time the branches are changing, whether they actually, can see if they can land on a branch or not. Besides providing them enrichment and doing flight training with them, we also observe them, of course. And that the observations are taking place during when we provide enrichment and when we provide flight training. But we also keep a general sight on their health, of course. But we also have more fixed observations where we just go sit down for an hour and we're collecting data on, for example, how much are they preening? Are they preening other birds? If they're always together with the same bird, which might indicate that they formed a bond. But yeah, also if they socialize with other birds, are they afraid? I've sometimes seen birds that are scared of other birds, which makes flocking, for example, less likely to happen. We are keeping in track of vocalizations. I usually see the number of vocalizations, human vocalizations, going down over time, and more natural vocalizations coming in place. I keep an eye on whether they're human focused. Sometimes they are human focused, and we sometimes train them to become less human focused. And finally, we kind of get a whole idea of their personality based on all these observations. So after they spend 3 months in the cage, we're gonna try to answer the question, are they ready for release? Well, let me first explain you what happens when we think they're not ready for release after 3 months. The first one is simply they need more time. For example, when we see that the flight is going better, but it's not there yet, or for example, when a bird looks like it wants to socialize, but all the other birds are already like having a couple, and it just has no opportunity to bond. In that case, we choose to, if it's possible, to put them in the new group, and because often, generally, we have every 3 months new groups coming in, so then it will just be put in a new group to give it more time. Another option is that these birds are all physically well. That's the only then they will come to bosque. However, some of them are kind of refusing to fly, and flying is just a very important. That's the most important one. Like they need to fly, otherwise they're not going to survive. So here on the picture you see what we call shelter. It's an area which has this mesh around it, so it's protected from outside predators and birds that are not willing to fly, at least in the cage. We are putting them here, so they're protected from predators, but if they decide to actually start flying by their own, they have the possibility to leave. The very good thing is also that outside birds are often visiting here, so they can have kind of live their life. It's much more safe because they don't have to deal with predators, and if they gonna be ready for freedom, they can decide for themselves. In a few cases, but that's only when the wings, for example, are the feathers are not regrowing well back, then we can choose to return them to Rescate, because then we know they're never going to be ready for release. That also might happen when a bird is very aggressive and it's attacking people. That's just not what we want. So in those cases, we return them. I'm saying here to Rescate, but I mean to the sanctuary. So they will be there then on display um, to teach people. On the other hand, if they are ready for release, then we're going to release them. We have two methods that we can use for the release. One is called the soft release, where a whole group has the opportunity to leave together. So in this case, we're just opening the cage. The individuals, they decide when to leave. They also might come back because they do recognize the cage, at least for a few days, as their safe haven. And we also close the door at night. And yeah, slowly you will see that the whole group goes out. And here you can actually see what a soft release looks like. The second method that we use is the semi-hard release. I call this semi because, of course, we're not just receiving them and releasing them. We have this whole 3-month prayer period. But during the semi-hard release, we don't release the whole group in one. Usually we release them 2 by 2. And we are, for example, splitting up couples. And we do this because we increase the chance of site fidelity. So by splitting up the pairs, we leave half of the couple inside, half of the couple outside, and in that case, the one that's outside can already explore the new environment, try to find where the outside feeders maybe are, which I will tell you later about. But it still will be attracted to the cage because its partner is in there, so we can still monitor it while it's outside. But then releasing in a group, there is a chance that the whole group just takes off, they disappear, and we have no idea about their fate. We cannot observe if anything goes wrong. Sometimes the birds get very tired after one day because they just need to build up their wing muscles even more. So if it's staying around the cage, we can observe them better. And once they have been released, we don't stop the observations, we continue. And one of them, what I just mentioned, we have feeder surveys. Every morning there are feeders outside that are being filled with food. And this is not to provide them food forever, and we don't want to keep them there, but it provides them food, especially after the first day of release, while they're still trying to get a hold on their environment. But on the other hand, it also gives us the opportunity to see how they're doing, especially right after release. It's also not going to be enough to sustain all the birds that are around, so they are encouraged to start looking for their own food too. Besides the feeder surveys that we do, we also record them when we see them randomly when we walk through the forest and write down how they are doing. Um, and for example, if they are eating natural fruit. Then we have the option for nest monitoring. Um, we have several natural nests around, so we can observe at least, even if we cannot reach a tree, sometimes they're very high, but we can observe who is nesting and if we see chicks later in the nesting season around. But we also have some some nest boxes that we hang. And for example, this year we had a nest, and we can monitor the chicks. Are they growing correct? Are these the birds that are reproducing that we released? Are they actually capable of reproducing naturally? And to kind of record the overall population, how it is going with them, is to have point counts, which means we are going at certain points of the day. We stand somewhere and we write down how many birds we hear. We do this in a lot of different areas in Bosque Escondido and even in town, because we've noticed that birds are also foraging in the town. and they're not encouraging people, so they're just using it as their natural environment. And then after the rehabilitation process and all the data that we are collecting, we want to answer that one question, right? Was it successful to do these releases? And just to remind you, we had two goals. One was the individual goal of the bird that has a chance to experience its natural environment, and the other one was to contribute to conservation, to populations that were perfectly extinct, reestablish new population, but also can contribute to the gene pool. So we can look whether the birds are socializing, whether they are eating natural fruits or are using the trees to eat leaves, or whether they just only come to the feeders. We, of course, can see if they're healthy, if they're out there. Are they still able to fly? Are they still maintaining their feathers? Flock cohesion, we're keeping an eye on. Do we see that they flock when they fly at longer distances? Are they flying alone or are they flying in groups? And how does it compare to natural populations? Of course, do they survive? Is there, if we release a bird now, how big is the chance that we still see it in a few years? With the nest checks, we can answer the questions about whether they actually can reproduce, even if birds have spent years and years at home with owners. Will they still be able to know how to reproduce? And with the nest checks, we can see if they not only can lay eggs, but also hatch them successfully and raise their chicks. And if we can see those chicks a year later, then we know, okay, they are good in raising chicks. And finally, if these chicks are again showing natural behaviors and reproducing too, I think then we can say, yes, we contributed to the conservation of this species.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rosanna. Now we want to thank you. I hope that was informative and interesting to you to know about our work. This was a summary of everything we do. And yeah, if you have any question, I'm happy to answer them.
Great. Thank you so much for the talk. It was very interesting and informative. We do have a few questions that people have posted along the way. One question is if you are collaborating with any adjacent countries or even in South America, countries that are trying to reestablish populations in the wild, and do you share birds or share data? Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yes, we cannot or we don't share birds. Most of the birds that we receive are actually from Costa Rica, because the problem in Costa Rica is that local people are taking them from the wild. So the animals that we are reintroducing are actually from here. It's quite difficult to send animals. We haven't done it. We are collaborating right now with we are talking to collaborate with Mexican researchers to send some genetic samples to study the phylogenetics of Amazona rotaliata and others, and to track wildlife trafficking as well. We also have the Parrot release network where we share knowledge and we share methodologies. I think in all the Americas, the people that we are working, releasing parrots, we are trying to understand better them, their needs, and improve the methodologies. So that's how we are collaborating right now, but there's still a lot to do.
Okay, great. Thank you. There's a question about single birds and how long it takes them to pair up. And is there a difference between Amazons and macaws? And also, do you ever release single birds, or do they always released in pairs?
We release always the birds in groups. And what we do, like the juveniles are always released in groups. Then if they are adults and they were expats, we also release them in groups. But what we do sometimes is to split the pair. We release one of the pair, like one individual. So the other, So the one that we release stays around and kind of don't, because the problem is that sometimes when we release them and they were expects, they go and they fly straight forward to the village to ask for rice and beans. And all the work is like, okay, thrown away. So this methodology helps so the individual that we release stays because the pair is there. That individual can explore a bit, so can see that there's food available, and when we release the other individual and they are together, they don't leave to the village. He already knows that there's food there and they don't need to go to the village. So yeah, sometimes it takes some time to pair an individual. What happens a lot is that sometimes they mate with the same sex, and I don't want that. So yeah, I will just individuals that are not mating, I will just put them change and put them in a group so they can have more chances to pair. But really, for them, it's easy to pair. And I think Amazon, like yellow nibs, are easier to mate that macaws. Sometimes macaws are a bit more picky, and sometimes they are like are crazy for they fight and love a lot, and it's a bit more difficult to see. But yeah, Amazon parrots are sometimes it's curious. But at the breeding center currently, I have a parakeet that is a white. Well, we released it's a white parakeet that came injured. We released, and he's bonded to a yellow nib. And it's really funny because he goes out and in from the cages because he's really small and he can come and go. So yes, definitely Amazon parrots, yellow nib Amazon parrots, easy. Yeah, they made me.
Great. And can you comment a little bit on some of the programs you have in place to protect these birds from human predators when they're released? Is it
Yeah.
via education or incentives, or how does that work?
So it has been a lot of work from the government part. We Rescate together with the government has done a lot of initiatives to educate people to don't take birds from the wild because it's a country problem. And then us at the community, at the village where we have Lisa, we have done a lot of community work, like talks, involve the community to the works, and then the community also has had a lot of benefits from the project because it's a really remote, lonely village, and now we have sometimes volunteers that come, people that visits, and there's a restaurant, and there's like a bit more economy running, and that is like okay. We have another economy source from this, and we don't need to hunt, we don't need to sell the parrots. So that is definitely helping a lot. And but it has been a really difficult work that the people that works there at the release site has done for many, many years and continues doing. But right now we reach a point where we can see the benefits because sometimes when a parrot leaves and arrives to the village, they call our site manager like, "Hey, I saw a parrot, or here there's a parrot," and this is super successful for us. That the community is actually helping us.
Great. And I know too, like with the great green macaws, there's some financial incentive to farm owners who have the mountain almond
Yeah.
trees or whatever, where they get paid to leave the birds alone and not to cut down the nesting sites and that kind of thing.
Yeah, those are more like initiatives from the government that are working well actually. Mhm.
We also have a question on tracking individual birds once they are released. I saw in some of the photos that the Amazon was wearing a collar with a number on it. So what methods do you use to track these birds long term once they are released?
Yes, we would love to put telemetry collars or GPS, but parrots destroy everything and they are super expensive.
Right.
So right now, any researcher that works with parrots has found the perfect collar to track them. In some projects that they have more donations, they can do it, but they don't last a long. They don't last long time, maybe 1 year. So what we do is to put lately this year we have developed this with together with Donald Brightsmith, where we put like a dog tag. We have seen that it has been working so far. Some parrots they destroy it, so it's really important to provide a lot of enrichment and stimulation, because if they are bored, they are going to start to chew on it.
Right.
But it's been working really well, and this way, at least if we see them, we have these counterpoints and the feeder points. So when we see them, we can know that they are around. And if they see them in another part of the country, they have like here, Rescate, and they can contact us. We do that, and then we also make marks on the tail. I'm going to show you.
And then after
I have a picture somewhere. We do marks on the tails, but that it lasts just for a short time. I can show you here. No. Well, see this picture. You can see that this is that we call that parrot that we call the mot tail.
Right.
Because so this way, if they are flying, we can see the shape of the tail. Because sometimes if they are too high, we cannot see the color. It's impossible, and we see the tail, the shape. But this doesn't last a lot, like maybe 3 months, 6 months. But yeah, these are the two methodologies that we have right now. Sadly, working with parrots is a bit difficult.
Great. And then there is another question, again, related to the neighbors, because the birds don't know borders and can fly to other countries.
Yeah.
Do you work with the neighboring Nicaragua or even farther north in Central America with the countries to somehow keep track of these birds or to have them monitored there?
Yeah, no. We are actually yes, last year some people that works with parrots created the parrot release network, and we are starting people that we are working with reintroducing releasing parrots. We are starting to make these connections, and I think this is really good and something that was really important because they weren't a lot of connections. So I hope now that we have this group that we are starting to discuss, to exchange ideas, to exchange methodologies, we can start also to make these partnerships and help more to the monitoring. And so I think it is going to come. We already started, but we don't have right now any partnership like that where we can monitor populations from different countries.
Great. Thank you so much for all the helpful information. We have some people that are asking about how they can help. And you have I see you have your email addresses listed there, so people could take note of those. I know Rescate is always looking for financial donations and also supplies. I know when we go down there, we bring supplies with us to help out with things that you may not be able to get as easily down there. So
exactly.
Is there a place where people could go to look for your wish list, or should they just contact you directly?
Yes, they can contact me and I can send the wish list. We have an Amazon wish list with supplies for the hospital, for the research that we try to develop. And then, yes, if anybody is going to travel to Costa Rica, sometimes we need supplies because we cannot buy them here or they are too expensive here. Medications, yeah, anything, if you travel to Costa Rica, text us, and if we can use some space on your luggage, that will be awesome. Then if anybody works with, I don't know, telemetry, or sometimes people that works in other, like, or fundraising or business, and you have any ideas of how to help us, you are always welcome to contact us, because sometimes we need people that helps us to, I don't know, like marketing, or yeah, other any other professionals are invited to also help us, because most of us, we are biologists, but conservation is made of people from other disciplines too.
Right. Great. All right, looks like we have one final question. And it's, he's asking, what is the survival rate for chicks hatched in captivity? And what age are they past the critical period where they're more likely to survive?
Yes. So the first question, we are continue doing research on that. Lily Donald Brightsmith and his team has been doing research on that there, and he has seen that we have 80% of successful rate, which is a lot. We don't have in Costa Rica, we don't have big predators for mohos, and not in the area where we are. So the threat that they have, or why they die, is more because or they don't adapt, or they were haunted, or like more human related. So we have a really high success. When they are at the breeding center, once they pass this 4 months period, is when I when once they are healthy, big, and already eating alone, it's when we have the most successful animal, or when I already know that they are going to survive. We don't have a lot of deaths later. It can happen. Sometimes it happens that, I don't know, we had a thunder, and the macaw was really, really wet, and he didn't know how to fly really well, and it fall. But that is really weird to happen. Usually, once they leave the parents and they are healthy, they are going to be released almost 99%. And they are going to be, it's going to be successful. It's the period of time that it's more sensitive is when they are from 1 to 2 weeks, or well, the first month and the third, and when they are going to fledge from the nest also, because sometimes the parents stop to feed them, or they feed them less, and they lose weight. And the 2 weeks before fledging the nest, it's a very sensitive time, and it's when I have to monitor them more and help them more, and I have more losses.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more. I'm looking. I
Okay.
found one more question that was actually in the chat. And it is asking how often parrots get imprinted to people and can't be released.
Yeah,
Or do
the
you use them
parrots,
for breeding?
yeah, the parrots that we breed are not imprinted, because we don't hand raise them. We barely put them in incubator. We try that it's very, very natural. We have enough animals, so we ensure that it's not like other species that we don't have a lot of individuals. So we have to hand raise them. No, if we have to hand feed them or something, it's punctually, occasionally, and usually the first 2 3 weeks, and the last, and before hatching, these 2 pairs that I said. So they are not imprinted, and then they never see people, because at the breeding center it's just me, and the people that works with me is just a few people. At the release site, we just have the researchers over there, so they never see a lot of people. The parents are imprinted, and that's why they cannot be released. Mhm.
I found it interesting when Roseanne was talking about some of the birds that had human vocalizations and apparently maybe were previous pets or something that they were able to be successfully released, which was great. Yeah, give them a second chance.
Yes, this is something that we are making, and well, right now we are currently studying this vocalization process, which is really interesting. And for them, they have a second chance, but the process is so long. We give them 3 opportunities usually. If we release them and they come back or they are really close to the people, we start all the process again. Second time, if they come back, we start again. And if the third time they come close to the people, they go to the village, or sometimes they attack people. We had parrots that they are there and they attack you. Because maybe they come from the head trade and they have like a bad, really negative association with humans. So these guys, they come back to the sanctuary, and right now these individuals, we are kind of putting them to make a new genetic pool to breed yellowneck parrots. So these guys are going to stay there in captivity for the breeding program.
Great. Once again, thank you so much for your time and for your knowledge. We really appreciate it. And thank you everyone out there for joining us today. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you so much, everybody, to listening to me and to invite us and listen the work that we do. Thank you. Have a nice
Thank you.
weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.